again, I introduce myself as Lynette Robinson. I am the co-chair of the Southwest County Council. Amongst the many hats that I wear in this community, I'm also the president of the Anthony Square Block Club and the vice president of the Changing of the Scenes Neighborhood Association. And we have some Changing of the Scenes people in the room. Hi, say hi. And amongst the other many hats that I wear, but when it comes Southwest Strong, I'm also the treasurer of the Southwest Rotary Club and the president of the Southwest Business Networking organization that will be starting in next week. So I've introduced myself. John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'll try to keep it short because we got a lot of people in the room here, but my name's John Boutte. I live in the 19th Ward. I'm co-chair of the Southwest Common Council and sit on John Lang's 19th Ward Schools Committee, and also I chair the Southwest Common Council Education Committee.
Eleanor Coleman, I'm the scribe and the executive director of Prosper Rochester.
My name is Shirley Green. I'm one of the school chiefs.
Welcome.
Rocco Martino, the chief accountability.
Don Starber, communications.
Carlos Garcia, it's good to see so many old friends again. I'm with this district now as an assistant to the superintendent.
Just one interruption. I'd like to say that we have a lot of white noise in this room. You may not hear it, but it is. So we do need you to project your voice so that everyone in the room can hear you.
Katie Swingley, I'm a team librarian at the Arnett Library in the 19th Ward.
Jay Ross, 19th Ward Schools.
Dan Ross, 19th Ward Schools and Early Childhood Development Initiative. I have a particular interest in pre-K, e-pre-K, and kindergarten.
John Lang, 19th Ward Schools Committee.
Ma'am?
Narlene Reagan's Rochester City School District's Office of Adult Career Education Services. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Hi. I'm Katie Trepanier, teacher at school number 23, Colton Parker, and PNL teacher.
Ma'am, in the blue?
Deb Leary, 19th Warder, and volunteer in kindergarten at 16.
John Craig, interested in developing a Southwest Interactive Learning Center.
David Anderson, I'm at Nazareth College as a visiting community scholar, and I got raised a second time in the 3rd Ward of Rochester, back when y'all weren't.
Hi, I'm Lauren Caruso, a member of the 19th Ward Community Association and Taproot Collective.
Ma'am, in the black? Orange?
Hi, I'm Leslie Knox. I'm a member of Taproot Collective and AmeriCorps member. I live in Lona, work in Beechwood, and learn about everything in between.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jerome Underwood. I work for the district.
White noise, we can't hear you.
You didn't hear me, Lynette?
I hear you.
Jerome Underwood, everybody.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, Jackie Campbell from Rock the Future, also a 19th Ward resident and a Pillar of Hope volunteer at school number 44.
Right.
Janine Gardner, Changing of the Scenes secretary.
See, we missed somebody over here.
Hank Ruben, I live up in Charlotte and I work with Community Foundation.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Idonia Owens, school chief, and I lived in the 3rd Ward when I was a kid.
Yes. Just introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Koji Schroeder.
White noise, we
and
can't hear you. We can't hear you.
That's what she's doing as much as she can.
Koji Schroeder, community activist.
Yes. I'm a retired teacher from Rochester City School District. That's it. And I live in the 19th.
Great. Thank you, Koji.
Hi, my name is Eric Stevens. I work at Common Ground of Health and support the work of the Greater Rochester of Health Foundation, and I'm on 19th Ward.
Okay.
My name is Minister Lorenz Lee Evans. I'm with the First Community Interfaith Institute Incorporated.
Okay.
Good evening, Ricky Frazier, volunteer coordinator of Rochester City School District, and a former resident of Southwest Park City.
Okay. And
I'm Beth Laidlaw. I'm a parent of a special needs girl who went to 5 and 50 in Soda. I also went to Raleigh, North Carolina to check out schools down there with 10 other folks from the city.
okay.
I'm Jeff Shortino. I've got two students at Soda and one student at Wilson, and I'm the president of the Wilson Parent Teacher Student Organization.
Great.
Loretta Walker from First Community Advocacy Program in Southwest.
Okay.
Abel Perez, I'm a 19th Ward resident and also an employee of the City School District for the Multilingual Department Director.
Great.
My name is Pam Bowler, and I live in the 19th Ward, and I'm also with the Southwest.
Okay.
Felicia Davis. I am with the Changing Up the Scenes Neighborhood Association and a grandparent of 2 students in Rochester City School District.
Great.
My name is John Thomas. I'm a member of a group called Great Schools for All, promoting regional magnet schools. And I have 3 children that went through the city school district.
Very good.
John Elko, I'm from Homestead Heights, and I've got a kindergartner at the children's school.
Valerie Johnson, I am a member of every group.
Good. That's what we need. Okay, if you would like to introduce yourself while we're going around.
My name is Shaquelle. I'm here from Swan.
Oh, great.
Kiara, she's here from Swan.
Very good.
Stacy, she's here from Swan also.
Swan also. Good. Swan is well represented.
In the room, please join us, is Shirley Green from the Rochester City School District, and now they'll take the floor. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for introducing me. As I mentioned, I'm a school chief. I have several schools in the southwest quadrant, schools 4, 10, 12, 23, and 44. But I'm responsible for 13 schools, and I heard a parent say they have a child at the children's school. That's one of mine. I'll see you at International Night tomorrow. I'll be there. And so we want to take this time to share with you about the path forward and provide an opportunity for you to give input as we do the work here in the Rochester City School District. And I'm going to introduce Rocco Martino, who will start with the presentation.
Thanks, Shirley. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So, it initially, as guests were walking in, I was very comfortable, and I thought, I know a lot of faces. This is wonderful. And then, have you ever had one of those moments where someone walked in and you stopped dead in your tracks? And I must fully disclose that I was ready as could be tonight. John and I have worked together for a number of years. And then one of my primary mentors walked in, Dr. David Anderson. So if you'd give a round of applause to Dr. Anderson. I will tell you, it goes back 25 years, and he said I look better now, which isn't true, because I used to be taller, thinner, and had more hair. But it's good to see such friendly faces and such a large turnout. What I'd like to do is frame for you, if I can. Well, I'm gonna use this unit. I'd like to frame for you why we're here. We're going to be focusing on the work that the district has begun that was a charge by a well-focused board in really getting us as an executive cabinet, our superintendent Barbara Dean Williams, to begin to conduct a deep dive around the need for an educational facilities master plan, focusing on ensuring high-quality schools, programs, equitable access to student services and community supports in every Rochester neighborhood, ensuring up-to-date data that's available when making decisions, focusing, obviously, in our southwest quadrant on schools 2, 3, 4, 10, 19, 29, 44, as John referenced, Wilson Foundation, Rochester Early College International High School, and Wilson Magnet.
You left 16 off the list by accident or by...
No, by accident. It was inadvertent. As you know, fortunately, we have comprehensive work taking place there. Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
Is that 16?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
1-6.
1-6, yes. Post Avenue, that's right. Again, focusing on the why, the Rochester City School District Board of Education requested an analysis of enrollment trends, demographics, managed choice, feeder patterns, placement zones, neighborhood schools, and regional schools. And the comprehensive nature of this path forward work is going to bring us to a series of results that we will, as a system and as a community, be able to bring forward in terms of providing next steps and a series of recommendations. With that, I'd like you to join me in welcoming our Deputy Superintendent, Bo Wright, who's going to walk us through the remainder of our presentation this evening. Bo?
Thank you. Okay, so Dr. G. Martino talked about the need to develop a master facilities plan. In other words, making sure that our classrooms and our schools can accommodate our program needs 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. But we also see this as an opportunity to take a careful look and to closely examine the systems and structures that are in place to support schools and ultimately support students and families. Because the reality is, a lot of them aren't working too well right now. We're doing some good things for kids, but there are a lot of things that need to be fixed. So let's just call that out. But we view this as an opportunity to do things better, to support our schools, to support our students, to support our families, and to engage our school community throughout this process. So that when we look at reimagining our classrooms and our schools, your voice is heard loud and clear in whatever plan that may be. And so this is an opportunity to make every school great, to look on the back end of our process to make sure that when students leave us, they leave with diploma in hand, ready to go to work, ready to go to college, and ultimately looking to build an organization that has better coherence. So we're going to be asking your input tonight around very specific topics which pertain to high school redesign. So not only looking at what we need to think about in terms of our physical space so that they're conducive to 21st century learning. Certainly technology plays a key role in that conversation, but also looking at program needs as well. Things like community involvement and internship opportunities. When we speak about community involvement, we're looking at community school design. We have some community schools in this district. We have about 4 community schools. I believe they are 9, 17, 22, and 45. But all of us are in agreement that we would like to see that model expanded. Looking at stronger school community partnerships, looking at extending our school hours so that our schools become community hubs where we serve students and families before school, after school, during breaks, and ultimately fostering more positive relationships with the families and children that we serve. We want to improve the overall quality and coherence of our special education and bilingual programs. We know that these programs need to be improved and bolstered. We're also looking at neighborhood and regional schools versus our current managed choice policy to see what is going to best serve our children for the long term. And certainly placement zones and feeder patterns factor into that conversation. And lastly, we want to look at specialty program and specialty school ideas. You know, people have come to us and said, you know, what you need to look at is another school that focuses on the arts. What you need to look at is another school that focuses on career and technical education, or you need to ramp up what's already happening in Edison. Some of those conversations have happened throughout this process. Someone came to me 2 days ago and said, you need to open an all-girls school, and here's why. And I said, well, we're willing to look at almost anything in this process. That's the purpose of it. But we're going to be looking at all kinds of specialty program ideas. And so we need you to join the conversation, and that's what tonight is all about, to get your input in the process. And what I should tell you up front is that this is a joint venture. This is a joint venture between the school district and the city. And so Letitia Doucette is here tonight from the mayor's office. She's going to be helping us with the facilitation of this evening's activities. And at this point, I want to turn things over to her because she's going to facilitate the interactive piece in all this. Our part of the presentation is actually very short because we want to hear from you. So I turn things over to Letitia to get us started.
Before you turn it over, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, what you're planning to do with the focus group or whatever you're calling these things, the anticipated looking at them, reviewing them, and compiling them into something will impact what school year?
Pardon?
What school year? Next school year? This school year? What school year?
So I'm glad you asked that question because that gives me an opportunity to talk about sort of the phases and the process and the timeline. So we spent the summer looking at a lot of different data sets. So looking at enrollment trends and demographic data, seat capacity, building use, those kinds of things. This next phase, which will be through the month of October and probably into mid-December, will be about community engagement. Holding events like this, getting into schools, talking with different groups, getting input, and then we're going to try and compile all this data into really 3 options for the board. And when the board selects one option, which will be probably right around the holiday season, probably after the new year, then we'll look at the beginning steps of implementation in late winter, early spring. But I think in terms of, I think you'll see, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, throwing something out there that I can't deliver, we can't deliver. But what I expect to happen is that there will be pieces of this which will be implemented for next year, and I think there will be other pieces that will be implemented down the road because this is meant for us to look at 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. It's meant to be a long range plan. But where everything falls in line, I think will really depend on what the board decides they want to do.
Well, since you're taking the feedback back, I'm going to say this because I am going to. So I get concerned when we have 28,000 students already in the pipeline.
Already what?
Already in the pipeline.
Yep.
And when we have 28,000 students already in the pipeline with 17,000 parents already actively engaged and beds they already going, having passed or no coming up, then what in the process ensures that those students, those 28,000, are able to adjust to whatever changes are being made, because the transient nature of all the programs that we do in our RCSD school district negatively affects our students. And there's never been a data set that looks at that and the impact of that on our students going forward.
I think that's the point. Is well taken. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm excited about this process, but also worried at the same time. Some of my concerns, I'm not sure if we share them. That so many of the, I just wonder if there's really enough time for parent and community input to actively play a role in this, because it seems like the timeline is pretty quick.
It is.
So I'm concerned about that aspect. And as well as I'm concerned that so many of, or it appears that so many of the people that will be making the decisions at your level, the chief level, don't have kids that are in the system. So that's why I really want you to let me know that the people that have kids in the district, people that live in the city, that their voice will really be a part of this process, and it isn't people making decisions that there's no skin in the game, you know?
Yeah, I understand that. And that's why we're here. You know, we don't want this to be a process where there's 4 men or 4 women in a room making decision from boardroom seats. We're going to be, the timeline is tight, make no mistake about it. But, you know, I can tell you this week, I think we did 6 engagements. We're serious about getting out into the community. We're serious about getting your input and feedback. And we're serious about making sure that your voice is heard in whatever plan is proposed and whatever options are proposed. And that I can promise you is that we will capture your voice in this work. We want this process to be different. The superintendent and our team and this board is committed to that.
And if I could just feedback, I really appreciated what the mayor said at the breakfast about there's no stability, or there's constantly a new superintendent, constantly new principals. Teachers can switch buildings every single year. And then I look at some other districts where you don't see that. You see the same superintendent for 15 years. You see the same science teacher, math teacher in the building for 20 years. So I wonder if that's something that you're looking at too. There's so much people moving, constantly switching. They're like, how can it grow? Because you get a new program, parents get excited, and then that principal's gone and it falls apart.
That's an important point as well.
Yeah, that would be a
concern. Point taken. Any organization that's going to thrive needs stability. Anything else before we move into the interactive portion?
When you're looking at these things, you know, one of the problems I think we have is there's that dynamic of we have young families, many leave the city, and so while they look like they should be in the pipeline, they don't wind up being in the pipeline. I think whatever we do, I'm hoping we can try to tailor it to sort of stop that cycle, and particularly to try to make our system more attractive to middle-class families of color. The urban suburban program, a lot of our best and brightest leave the district. It would be great if we could even have some families from the suburbs perhaps who would really want their kids to get the experience, who are middle class, particularly families of color, to be coming into the RCSD.
Yes.
From a neighborhood perspective.
Dan, can you stand up? You're behind the board and white noise. Okay.
From a neighborhood perspective, I mean, one of the biggest things the RCSD has to do is they have to consider the children and their families their primary market. So from a business perspective, who is the RCSD selling their product to? Now, it could sell to teachers, unions, policymakers, grant funders, but if back when my child was 3, if the RCSD had connected with me and sold me a good product as a 3-year-old, as my child was 3, well, they would have gone to the 4-year-old program, the kindergarten program, and the 1st grade program. But just as when kids are not the primary focus of what we sort of do besides what's in the classroom, you would have stability. Working with many school districts, I know that when that teacher for global studies knew what their class was going to be, they went to summer classes on how to teach that subject. And having relatives who teach in the city, they don't know what their placement is until September. Maybe a week after school starts.
Yeah.
They have no opportunity to take a summer course on how to teach Greek mythology to wiggly 10th graders. So they may be a great teacher. They may be a far better teacher than a suburban teacher. But if they don't know where they're going to be, and if we as parents don't know who's my teacher going to be, why would we want to stay in the system?
Understood.
So that is a great segue into what tonight is for. So thank you for all of these comments. These comments actually fall into the topics that you see around the room. And before I kind of get into what we are doing, you probably don't know who I am. So I am Tishandre Doucette. I work in the Mayor's Office of Innovation and Strategic Initiatives. I report to the Mayor and help design policy, etc., based on data. This is a great partnership between the Mayor and our superintendent, and as far as I know, the first time a sitting mayor and a sitting superintendent have worked together on this type of initiative. What is also really great is that it comes in line with the city's comprehensive plan, how we're going to look like in 10, 20, 30 years, and how does what we as a city do to support what is going on with the school district. So a lot of these conversations that we've been having, I'm getting input from members to then go back and sit down and design strategies to go to the mayor and say, you know, we really need to look at vacant lots and how we right-size vacant lots, how we turn them into places of positivity instead of negativity. So I'm going to be floating around the room and listening in and taking that feedback. And I do have business cards with me that you can take. So for tonight's activity, each table has a different topic. And on your table, there should be, and if there's not, I've got backups with me, prompt questions for each topic. A lot of these questions came before our student summit that we had on the 29th of September. Over 360 of our youth came to SOTA, and we asked them a series of questions. I then tailored some of these questions for these further engagements based on what those students said and where we need to focus on. So, but you won't know which ones are tailored or not. So I need to keep it anonymous so that I know from a data perspective I'm getting true data. But all of these will be collected. I'm creating infographics of what you say, summary of what you say, to be posted on the Path Forward website, as well as hopefully on the city's website so that people can see what they did. You'll have a public document that's available. So all of this is rich information and will be put into the report. I'm not going to let it not happen. I'm telling you. Folks know at RCSD that I get cranky and that I do push. And it's because, you know, even though my children are grown and I adopted them and they didn't go into the school district, I see every child as my child. And it is my responsibility as a civil servant to serve you and to help you and to create policies that are meaningful, robust, and helpful. So with that, I'm going to allow you guys to self-select which table you want to be at, and then I'm going to call time to let you rotate through each topic so that you have a chance to give input on those topics. You'll have a facilitator at each table to help move the dialogue along and ensure that there is every voice is heard. And I'm here for questions-ish. There's no right or wrong answer here, but we're not here to kind of delve deep into discussions about, you know, answering questions. We need your opinions, your concerns, your barriers. Sometimes possible solutions come out of those discussions, but we want this to be purely you guys talking and not being talked at. Does that make sense? So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here.
I have a question.
Yes.
So since you are pushing with data and innovation and so on and so forth, either you or Bo may be able to answer. There's a new district dashboard, and although this process has a fluid timeline that's short, are you including any of the information updates from the sessions on the district's dashboard?
I don't know what the district dashboard is.
Then Bo might.
So not on the district's, not on the district's dashboard specifically, because as you know, as we've reviewed, it's data specific around performance.
Louder.
Yes. It's the district's dashboard. It continues to evolve, and the primary targets, the primary data points are performance-based, are also specific to graduation and other information that we've been uploading to that site. What Letitia indicated is that the feedback from these sessions will be a different point. We will have, as Carlos can share, we will have a link that's essentially a hot button on the public facing page of our website, so people can drill down into the feedback that's been provided at each of these sessions.
Is that great? And we did use a lot of data, both city and district data, to really put in what's called a demographics portion of the report, to really look at and project into the future what things would look like, how to coordinate, everything is in there.
And I guess I asked that because sometimes our district treats the parents and community as if we don't know anything.
Right.
And you know, you can be a data driver, but there are those of us that can actually read the data and make informed decisions, or have our decisions informed as far as our participation. But if you don't give us the data, then we sit in these meetings with certain people having data that we don't have, and then you want to have an equitable conversation, or you want to have our input when only certain people have the data. So that's why I'm asking, value your parents and don't assume that we don't know how to use data.
And so this is my last comment before I let you go. From the city perspective, we're creating a mayor's dashboard and working on that to try and find out ways to make city data public data. That's a little bit of a legal process because people don't like having their data out in the public. Great. As far as I know, the Path Forward report will be public, and so you can then look at the data that we did use and use that in whatever it is that you need. I have to do data analysis, etc., for community partners and sit down with people to teach them how to use data, think about data in their everyday situation. So that is a service that the city provides through my office. So you're welcome to come in, and then I can show you data that I can't show you public. So.
Hey, Latricia, I just, one of my friends, Jackie Campbell, realized there's a topic missing, and that's parent engagement. Like, parents are, it just feels like I know as a parent, and the parents that I work with often feel that they're left out of the process.
So that would be in school culture and compliance. So if you want to go to the tables and the topics that you want to initially start with, I'll give you about a minute to do that, and then we can start. Does that work?
Yes. Yep.
All right.
I know that 15 are I would bet
that guy described that we all, I know I had and I really have. And then it says, which is go into that has transition. And my older son, then I had to get
and therefore honor it by a number of the year or materials distributed to classes at various levels.
Coordinate that way so that if this critical thing occurs, my teacher can address it and put it in context. So how it does develop.
key points and takeaways from that table. So I'm going to start. Okay.
All right. This was the academics table, and there were a number of recurring themes. One recurring theme was focus on our families and essentially provide assurance that we're going to help our families be successful and in turn help our students be successful. The second recurring theme was replicate what's working. We have expeditionary learning. We have 3 schools in particular who are doing very well with expeditionary learning. We heard from parents and community members about specifically about School of the Arts, and we also heard about Wilson IB. And the ask is consideration to really reflectively take a look at our successes and move forward with replicating our successes. Another recurring theme at this table was specific to assessments, and request was that consideration be given for not only the number of assessments, but the types of assessments that are administered, and also really the proverbial seat time students are in their chairs at their desks or computers taking assessments.
Great. School claimant.
Yeah, our group had was very vocal. We had 8 pages filled, but I'm going to read all of it. I'm just going to mention that some of the main topics. Most parents felt that the parent engagement topic should have been a nice separate topic, where they should not included under this topic. That was number one. The other topic that came out a lot was the need for the district to bring stability to our system in terms of consistency, in terms of teachers and administrators, and avoiding so much movement, which also affects the children and the consistency that they receive in terms of the schooling. Another issue that in response to whether people felt welcome in the buildings, it was suggested that it depends on the building. There is not a culture of a welcoming culture across the buildings in the district. It's just hit and miss, and it should not be the way. It should be a welcoming culture. It doesn't matter where a parent enters. It should be assumed that they should be welcome, and physical space should show what the building is about. Another issue that came up was also the every year it seems like we start a brand new year and everything is brand new, when it is not. The parents have been there with the kids in some buildings for 7 or 8 years, and they have the historical context of what took place before and what is happening. And the new administrators and teachers and new personnel should be drawing upon the parental input in the community to actually draw from there the historical knowledge and enact the changes that have been proposed earlier. So there should be consistency, removal of biases, and welcoming of children.
Awesome. Thank you.
School choice. So we heard a lot about having a culturally relevant curriculum in school that's diverse and meeting the needs of their children, but that it's balanced. So a little bit came out. We did talk about the managed choice. There was some different feedback about managed choice, being informed. How do you find out information? We need to be looking at that. And also having choice around, some people did talk about a regional model, so that you have balance of economics in the school to bring about more success, a sense of belonging across all the children in the school. Overall, those were the common themes that we saw in managed choice, but also about stability. That having neighborhood schools, if they are neighborhood or schools within a distance that's reasonable, so that you are part of the community. And I can't remember who said it, that kids who need a village are in a village, so that you know everybody in your community to support you through your path. one last thing too is that people don't know where they're headed or where they're going. So choice comes later. So you might start, we have anxious about where I might go to pre-K and K, and then anxiety about where I might go to high school. And how can we begin to bridge that and reduce anxiety for families around that?
Thank you so much. Racial equity. Everyone just went not
He's a master facilitator. Racial equity, stuff that nobody wants to talk about. But a lot of input, nonetheless. When asked the question about racial equity, it was unanimous that nobody thinks it exists in the district. It does not exist. So from a strength-based point of view, solution-based, there are some suggestions in terms of how to achieve that. So that led to a discussion on what is racial equity. The feedback that came out of that was rich in terms of just recognizing people for who they are, whoever, and the acknowledgement that teachers are very important, role models are very important, that look like students. But it's not enough, not because you're Black or Latino as a teacher, means that you're cut out to be a teacher. So professional development in terms of cultural competence is sort of trump card for everybody to get to a point where you're culturally competent. And a big key in cultural competence is not knowing the culture of the child, but knowing your own culture and what you come from and your heritage, and knowing what grandma and grandpa did and what they achieved and even what they failed at will help to join in with the children's lived experiences and understanding what that is. So there was also a strong solution, a strong suggestion that higher ed, government, and philanthropy need to be invested in the teacher pool, the diverse teacher pool, because there's an acknowledgement that there are not enough teachers of color, and particularly male teachers of color, who are entering the field. So we should invest in that to prime that pipeline, so to speak, and to make sure that, you know, it'll never be equal, but we need much, much more than what we have right now. And several people who came to the table were actually students in the district, and one gentleman mentioned, that he didn't see a Black male teacher till I think he was in high school. So we have a long, 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 long way to get to that. There endeth our story.
There's more. Gotta read. Transportation.
In transportation, there were basically three themes that kept coming up throughout the night. One was the issue of having transportation for everybody, and what does that mean in terms of the budget? Okay. The second part was the data of the having the percentage of students that are actually on the bus and how long they are on the bus, because some kids get on the bus at around 7 and they don't get home until around 7 at night. So the question then is, how much time are these kids spending literally on a bus, getting to and from school, getting to and from aftercare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third thing that came up was this issue of how does the busing impact the larger community in terms of desegregation, or in some cases segregating some kids. So how are we taking a look at the larger picture as to how our transportation system is actually affecting our community and the choices that people are making? Does that make sense?
Thank you. Last but not least.
John's going to present for our team.
Awesome.
He's been here for 2 hours.
Our table had tremendous support for the program called Oasis. the vocational skills training program that leads to jobs for many persons who formerly hadn't succeeded in school. So the big push was to expand and to support that program, get young persons to appreciate early on in education that in your early years, appreciate that there are other forms of success other than going on to college and pursuing a career, perhaps in a professional field, but to recognize that skilled trade can also provide a wonderful income and a wonderful stepping stone for other persons to be able to learn. There's also an appreciation that there's a need to be a vendor-driven system in terms of, for example, the Rochester machine industries need to have trained employees. So to have programs within the district then address that. The idea that came out was the idea of a quadrant-based, and in this area here with the southwest quadrant with proximity to the University of Rochester, the suggestion is to develop an interactive technology center where persons can have a chance to experience different types of technologies, from smartphones to tablets to also what they call collaboratory, a place to be able to learn how to learn the technologies, but done in as a group fashion. And the effort will be linked closely with the University of Rochester in terms of having their students then become navigators and mentors and the role models for the students.
Very much. So next steps. What does that look like? What are we gonna do? If many of you have asked me for my business card, I have them. So you can come see me after we're all done. All of this information will be collated and typed up, and an infographic will be made and put on the website for just so that you can see the summary of everything that was going on. And there will be a Word document that should be public with all the information from each and every session. This information is going to be put into the Path Forward report. So do not think that this is wasted time. It is not, 100%. It will not waste your time, ever. So this will be going into report, and then those resolutions will be happening sometime by the end of the year. December 21st is our deadline, right?
That's when the report will be submitted to the Board of Education, and then we'll be making decisions after they've had a chance to review.
Right.
Consider the options.
So if you want to have follow-up, we have our wonderful city school district folk here, and I'm here as well. So if you want my business card, I'm happy to give it to you. But thank you for your time. Thank you for your honesty and your candor. Some really great conversations, and have a good evening.